Welcome to the hidden reality. Although most black people do not experience the type of blatant white racist subjugation tactics as our grandparents had, we, however, still do experience it. The white society's practices of developing racist subjugation tactics against black people never actually ended. White oppressive forces merely developed more covert methods for doing so. When the blatant white racist subjugation tactics used in the past against black people resulted in unprecedented unified black protests that threatened the peace and stability of the white society, the white oppressors did not abandon their practice. They instead merely developed more covert and more sophisticated methods for subjugating black people. White racism is now deployed with much more sophistication. That when comparing it to the past blatant segregation tactics, one could say that the segregation tactics of the past had a GED, while today's subjugation tactics has a PhD. Therefore, is not easily recognized nor easily comprehended by its black victims. Because the subjugation of black people always works best when the black victims no longer understands or recognizes it. Black people's ignorances of the ongoing subjugation tactics that are being deployed against us provides white oppressive forces with their greatest power over black people. Moreover, it allows them to continue their subjugation of black people indefinitely. Therefore, those of us who know the truth must teach those of us who do not. African proverb. Within this video, I will demonstrate what is called a self-fulfilling prophecy and how it is being used by white oppressive forces to secretly subjugate black people. Do you know that false information can become true just because it's believed to be true? And science has even proven this to be a fact. Psychologists have found evidence to support that your belief can make a change even when those beliefs come from narratives that are false. It's what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy is when a originally false information becomes true because people's behaviors aligns with the false information, thus making it true. Researchers have tested out the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Dr. Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson conducted the first experiment on the self-fulfilling prophecy effects in the 1960s. Rosenthal and Jacobson chose a group of students at random. They were told that they were given a special test. They told the students that the results of those tests reveals that they were exceptional and that they will eventually stand out among their peers academically. In reality, the test scores showed nothing. It was a made-up test. But the students didn't know this. At the end of the year, the researchers returned to look at the students and see how they were doing. The students that were told that they were destined to greatly improve academically made significant improvement over the course of the year. They were much smarter. They did much better on their tests. This example of a self-fulfilling prophecy was a positive one. But think about the ways the opposite can be done. To our detriment, this is our case. When the white media constantly tells black people negative false information about ourselves that are actually deliberately designed to create a self-fulfilling prophecy effect that negatively impacts our communities. These self-fulfilling prophecy works in cycles. First, the white society presents false information to the black population. The black population then accepts the false information, and then our behaviors aligns with the false information, thus making it now true, negatively affecting our communities. For example, white propagandists constantly inundates the black population with false narratives that we're the most divided group. Many black people accept the false narratives. Our behaviors aligns with it, and we therefore become the most divided. Here's a perfect example of how a self-fulfilling prophecy was weaponized against the African American community. Although most African Americans have in fact been reporting crimes to law enforcement since the abolishment of slavery, white propagandists created the false narrative that most African Americans have a no snitching policy and therefore don't report crimes. Many African Americans accepted the false narrative as being true and therefore stopped reporting crimes, thus making the original false narrative now true. This alignment to the narrative actually made lives within the black community harsher with people not reporting crimes. Another example of a self-fulfilling prophecy tactic that was deployed against the African American community was when white propagandists created the false narrative that we African Americans made the N-word ours. Millions of African Americans accepted the false narrative and then started calling themselves niggers. Within this scenario, the self-fulfilling prophecy tactic was used to manipulate African Americans to self-identify as niggers. Now, here's the true reason why they did this to us. Because to subjugate and control a targeted population, the first step is to neutralize the alpha males, aka those possessing warrior spirits. These are the males who are psychologically wired to protect their communities and to protect their women. White social scientists neutralized the black African alpha males by socially engineering millions to call ourselves niggers. They did this to us because words, when repeated often enough, has immense power over the subconscious mind. We psychologically become the words we repeatedly call ourselves. It's why men that call themselves thugs are more likely to engage in a fight than to avoid one. It's also why women that proclaim themselves as being bitches often become stubbornly unreasonable. We subconsciously function based upon the words we repeatedly call ourselves. It's a psychological phenomenon that white social scientists have thoroughly researched. When we repeatedly call ourselves niggers, this psychologically conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false inherent subordinate identity that makes us less likely to stand up against the white society, therefore aiding the white society in maintaining its control and dominance over us. When we call ourselves niggers, this also separates us from our unified African heritage. Without having a base African identity to connect ourselves, over time we become further fragmented and we become weaker as a people. We can then be made into anything the white oppressors wants us to be. Calling ourselves niggers we also dehumanize each other when doing so. This makes it easier to mistreat and even kill each other. This is a fact that the military has known for centuries. They're waging a war against us, and most of us are so clueless of it. Here's another example of a self-fulfilling prophecy propaganda that creates division between Native Africans and African Americans. The white propagandist repeatedly feeds the false propaganda into our communities, stating that Native Africans and African Americans don't like each other. Many within both groups accept the false narrative and their behaviors align based upon the information, thus making it true, thus creating division between both groups. When Africans are divided globally, we lose our global numerical advantage and we lose all hope of defeating global white supremacy. The most elaborate deployed self-fulfilling prophecy tactic is where in which white propagandists have fed lots of false disinformation into society that either falsely exalts whites and falsely marginalizes blacks, and or that claims their negative narratives as being ours and our positive narratives as being theirs. This creates an illusionary truth effect that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. It's how they maintain their dominance over black people. The illusory truth effect is what it's called. The illusory truth effect is when people have been made to believe that false information is true because of constantly being subjected to the false information. And they then begin functioning based upon the false information rather than the true reality to the contrary. The hidden reality in the U.S. is the largest recipient of welfare, largest benefactor of affirmative action, and the group that commits most violent crimes are in fact Caucasians. And in spite of cultural traumas wrought by slavery and the ongoing injustices of white racism, most inventions that have revolutionized the world were either in fact invented by black people or were directly inspired by early inventions by black people. However, these noted true facts are withheld from the public. The public is instead functioning based upon false information to the contrary, because doing so creates and sustains false assumption within the society that aids in maintaining white social dominance. I never said that what I teach would be easy for all to comprehend. I know it goes over the head of many who hears it. I only promised that it would be the black liberating truth, the truth that we must learn in order to free our minds from white mental slavery, the truth that we must learn in order to liberate ourselves. Welcome to the real world. White oppressive forces are working behind the scenes to keep our people ignorant and dumbed down, working hard. And as long as you continue to focus your energies on the Bible, you will remain mentally enslaved by the white society. While we study our Bible trying to be holy, we are therefore easy victims for those who have studied how to hijack our minds, how to hijack the minds of large targeted populations using social sciences. It is time to elevate our minds and stop believing in things that insult our intelligence. Our plight has nothing to do with a Bible written by our most ungodly enemies and brutally beaten into the minds of our ancestors. A Bible that condones slavery is inherently disqualified from being true words of God. A Bible written by history's most ungodliest group is also disqualified from being the words of God. And to believe that we're controlled by a slave syndrome, you'd have to be ignorant, because that premise present would be the least effective method used for controlling generations of people. There are social sciences that's being deployed against black people. Social sciences that most black people aren't able to comprehend. And it's how the white society maintains the continued subjugation of black people. It is time to wake up to our reality. Learn more by visiting my webpage, www.theblackpeoplesmatrix.com. Franklin Jones signing out. One love and peace.